Okay. Back in this thing. About to go work with the dogs today. Let's see what this has to say. I think today's the 15th. I'm guessing 15th. Make your work come to life. That's the title of today's law. I think this is the right one. Leonardo da Vinci's hunger to get at the core of life by exploring its details drove him into elaborate research on human and animal anatomy. He wanted to be able to draw a human or a cat from the inside out. He personally dissected cadavers, sawing through bones and skull, and he religiously attended autopsies so that he could see as closely as possible the structure of muscles and nerves. His anatomical drawings were far in advance of anything of his time for their realism and accuracy. In your own work, you must follow the Leonardo path. Most people don't have the patience to absorb their minds in the fine details and minutiae that are intrinsically part of their work. They are in a hurry to create effects and make a splash. They think in large brushstrokes. Their work inevitably reveals their lack of attention to detail. It doesn't connect deeply with the public and it feels flimsy. You must see whatever you produce as something that has a life and presence of its own. Seeing your work as something alive, your path to mastery is a study, and absorb these details in a universal fashion to the point at which you feel the life force can express it effortlessly in your work. Daily law. See your work as a living thing. Your task is to bring it alive and make others feel this. All right. And from what I'm reading in this one, let's see, what chapter is this? I'm in the chapter called, what's it called? Pick Your Battles Carefully, the Perfect Economy Strategy. And the paragraph that I saw here: there will be times when your calculations misfire. What had seemed to be an easy campaign turns out hard. Not everything can be foreseen. Not only is it important to pick your battles carefully then, but you must also know when to accept your losses and quit. In 1971, the boxer Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, both at the height of their career, met for the World Heavyweight Championship. It was a grueling match, one of the most exciting in history. Frazier won by a decision after nearly knocking out Ali in the 5th round. But both men suffered horribly in the fight. Both threw a lot of good punches. Wanting revenge, Ali gained a rematch in 1974, another grueling 15-round affair and won by a decision. Neither boxer was happy. Both wanted a more conclusive result, so they met again in 1975 in the famous Thrilla in Manila. This time, Ali won in the 14th round, but neither man was ever the same again. These 3 fights had taken too much out of them, shortening their careers. Pride and anger had overtaken their powers of reason. Do not fall into such a trap. Know when to stop. Do not soldier on out of frustration or pride. Too much is at stake. That's a good one. Know your limits. Know when to quit. Quit while you're ahead. Yep. I think that's important. Knowing when enough is enough. Yep. Like if you're unhappy at a job, or if you're unhappy in a relationship, I think that's important. Knowing when to bow out. There's no disgrace in knowing that, you know what, you've given it the best that you could have given it. Now it's time to walk. I get that. I've done that. yeah, pride. Pride is never a good thing. I've always had that thought. And you hear people say, you know, they're proud to be this and they're proud to be that. You know, proud to be a certain culture or a certain race or a certain gender. And I've always thought to myself, wait a minute, isn't pride like one of the 7 deadly sins? I think it is. I was like, you're not supposed to be proud. It's not a good thing, right? I think pride was the reason the devil was cast out of heaven. Right? And then there's a story of who is it? Darn it. There was somebody who made, I think it's like Greek mythology. Somebody made like wings so they could fly. They were made out of like, you know, they weren't natural to him. He created it. But then he flew too close to the sun, and the sun melted the wax that held the wings together, and he fell to his demise. Pride goeth before a fall. That's another saying. And that's a perfect example of what happened, and I guess in that little excerpt about Frazier and Ali. Because look how they ended. Too many punches to the head. And if anybody's seen those fights, those are fantastic fights. This is crazy to see. So today I'm going to have some fun with some doggies. Hopefully it's nice and calm all day. Had a whole bunch of dreams again last night. Can't remember any of them, but there was a bunch. Yeah, there's something about pride that always bugged me. It always gives people like a false sense of like an egoic attitude. Like based on something that's like inconsequential. It seems like. And that's what seems to cause a lot of problems. Well, first because it causes division. I think a better word to use in the place of pride would be grateful. I'm grateful to be this, or I'm grateful to be, you know, whatever, from here. Use the word pride, it tends to like put whatever other groups out there at odds with whatever your proud group is, and it kind of flips the dynamic when you use the word grateful, I think, because it kind of turns it more into like when you're grateful for something, it doesn't turn it into like a competition. It kind of turns it into like, it kind of like induces other people to join in. What are you grateful for? You know, or what are you grateful to be? It's not so like antagonistic. Like when you start saying you're proud to be, a certain race or culture or political affiliation or whatever group you're identifying with, it kind of sounds like antagonistic and like competitive with the other groups. And if you're being grateful, it kind of sounds more friendly. It sounds more, I hate to use the word, but it sounds more inclusive. Like, I'm grateful to be this. And it sounds like an invitation for others to, express their gratitude. That's why I think like the 60s, like and all the whole counterculture and all the conflict that happened during the 60s, because they were being encouraged to be proud, to have pride. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Isn't that isn't that one of the sayings that came out of the 60s? Obviously, it doesn't apply to me, but that's what that whole culture, that whole group was given that slogan. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Proud is pride. And for some reason, when you put it into that kind of context, it causes like automatic conflict, because then it gives rise to other groups to be prideful of their heritage or ethnicity, right? And it should just, if it's okay for like one, like just say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. For blacks to be proud, to be black, if that's okay, then other groups it should be okay for other groups, all things being equal, it should be okay for other groups to be proud. Like white people. But when you say white pride, all of a sudden it takes on a whole new meaning. and everybody wants to back away. Which I think is pretty funny. You can take pride in your work. The effort that you put into your work. There's certain forms of pride that are healthy, I guess. When it doesn't have to do with an ideology, but when it has to do with the result of an effort. Right? It doesn't take any effort to be white. It doesn't take any effort to be black. You're just born that way. It does take effort to be a craftsman of some sort, right? To be an inventor, to be an engineer, to be an inventor. People who bring new technologies into the world, they can be proud of the results of their labor. That's a form of healthy pride, but it has nothing to do with like a group, like a static group or an ideology. Those things are. It doesn't take an effort. Really, it honestly doesn't. I mean, people say it does. It doesn't take effort to be like a Christian or a Muslim. It's actually pretty simple. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It just takes a firm decision to be those things. A consistent, firm decision. So, that's what pops into mind off those pages. Also be proud for leaving a bad situation. If you're in an unhealthy relationship or a toxic work environment, you didn't think you had it in you to leave, and then you finally do. That's something to be proud of. But again, it has nothing to do with like the forms of pride that we're normally encouraged to have. To be honest, I think it's healthy to be suspicious of any forms of pride that you're encouraged to have on a grand scale. I think that's the best way to put it. Right? If you're encouraged, if they're trying to encourage you to be a proud Democrat, or a proud Republican, or a proud liberal, or a proud conservative, or a proud feminist, right? If they're trying to attach your personal pride to a very like ethereal and nebulous kind of group ideology, that's something to be very suspicious of. That falls into the groupthink category of that book that I'm reading. Groupthink is always something to avoid. Independent thought. That's what you want. Now, if you're attracted to any one of those things without being encouraged by anybody, I guess that's fine. But don't marry your whole personality and your whole sense of self to what these groups are about. Like, I fell into that when it came to being vegan. And my whole life started to become defined by being vegan. And it took a while for me to see it like, oh, okay, this is kind of like a cult. It has all the earmarks of a cult. For anybody that doesn't understand what I'm saying, you start to, the term is other. You start to other, people in general. Like, you kind of start to have this sense of like elitism and superiority because I'm vegan, because you do it. When I got started to identify with that, it was out of compassion for animals. So it does have like this soft, foundation of compassion attached to it. But then you really start to become like, it's kind of like us against them mentality. It draws this firm division between, the vegans who are, trying to save the world, save the animals, and the rest of you heathens. That's kind of the mentality that it cultivates. And then it starts to limit obviously it limits what you can eat, but where you can eat, who you can hang out with. Starts to like dictate your behavior. It's exactly what a cult does. You have to live by these rules and do these things and hang out with these people because the rest of them are not in the group. And they are dangerous. And that's a cult. My advice to everybody, always be careful with what you associate with in terms of the ideology in a group. The same goes for every religion. I'm a Christian. It's the same kind of dynamic. It's be considered a cult. You only hang out with Christians. And again, it has the the soft underbelly and the structural framework of something positive. But there's extremes to it. Just ask anybody that identifies as a white Christian national. Yeah, those things, those ways of thinking get slippery because all of a sudden it's like quicksand, but like a quicksand that you intentionally get yourself into, and all of a sudden it's hard to get out. Like you didn't accidentally stumble into it. Something about it attracted you to it, and you jumped right in. And that's what they're triggering, I guess, right now, if you want to think about it. Like when it comes to all the politics and the social division, that's what they're encouraging right now. Is groupthink ideology. You know, nobody wants to be not in. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to be in the in group. So people start choosing sides and picking favorites. Because the role of an outcast doesn't seem attractive to most people. Or to be on the out. I actually tend to prefer it. I was having this conversation with my buddy. I forget what it was, how it started, but he said something like, I had said something to him. I forget what it was now. I should have checked it before I left. But I forgot about this conversation until right now. But he said something about, yeah, but that's kind of like a lonely way to live. And I forget what we were talking about. Damn it, that was a good conversation though. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, it is. But I kind of prefer that. I prefer, you know, a very, very small circle. I even told him that's why, you know, it's just me, my woman, and my dog, and that is it. We are the three legs of a tripod. And it takes three legs for something, well, except for humans. You know, for any inanimate object, it takes at least three legs for it to be able to stand up. Well, I guess maybe not in this day and age. I mean, you could always dig a hole, but still, you know, to stand up on its own without the necessity of a hole or, you know, cement and holding it's like whatever it is up. But that's what I said. Almost to my job. Oh, another interesting section out of that book I was reading, because it's split up into different sections, and the section I'm on now is defensive warfare. If I'm remembering correctly, one of the areas in this section was about something called the death ground tactic. And it's the idea of putting yourself in a situation that gives you no way out. Like it's either you win or you die kind of situation. Even if it's only metaphorical, that's a good way to ensure that you're going to give 100% of yourself to whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. You have no choice but to succeed. Otherwise, you die. Or it dies. Like if it's a project or something. That's another good mentality to cultivate. It's helpful in life. You know, if you approach a job or a relationship, whether it be business or personal, you know, if you, especially, I mean, this only applies to something that you really, really want, or or something you really want to work out. But it's the death ground strategy or tactic. Just mentally cultivate the idea of do or die. I think there's a saying there, it's not for me to reason why, it's only for me to do or die. And I think that kind of applies to life in general. Kind of goes hand in hand with the only way out is through. Like once you're in it, there's no going back. You push through. And that one, like, you know, success or failure, you keep going no matter what. That's something I heard someone say once too. If you know, in life, if you're going through hell, don't stop. Keep going. You gotta keep going to get out of there. I thought that was a clever way to put it. And I have arrived safely. The third one? I don't remember. One of these gives a little bit of shade during the day. I don't really remember which one, but I think it's the third one. It's the one I'm picking. Alright. Well, I am here. Reached my destination. I guess to end this, what I read in the Daily Law, pay attention to details, something like that. And know your limits and know when to quit while you're ahead. That's a good one. Yep. All right. Let's go to work.